Hi, I'm Jenny Fenton and I'm one of the Bellingen Shire councillors. This Thursday we're making a decision about starting our main street plan, which you can see behind involves the removal of those camphor laurels. Lots been said in the media about why they shouldn't be removed, and I'd like to share some of the reasons they should. My daughter Marla is one of the many Bellingen locals who uses mobility equipment. She uses a mixture of a walking frame, a manual wheelchair and a power wheelchair. Today we're taking her and her equipment for a tour of our town centre to demonstrate a few of the features that slow her down or outright exclude her. Some of these features also put her and her carers at risk. We'll also be recording some of the features that put elderly people and people with less equipment intensive conditions at risk. Remember, not all disabilities are visible. And I'll share some of the considerations I'm aware of as we approach the Main Street Plan implementation in Phase 1 and 2. You can learn more about these proposed works at the Bellingen Council website. Let's start with the trench along Church Street, between Church Lane and Hyde Street. You might not have even noticed it if you're steady on your own 2 feet. When this area is crowded, and it often is, the trench becomes a danger. And while these walk the plank sections are fun for some, they're risky for others. Notice the grade up this plank? Too steep for my daughter without power and too risky with it. The trench is also a great place to see the extent of infrastructure damage by tree roots. New paths, pavings and gardens cannot keep going up because grade is the enemy of those with assisted mobility. On this paved area, look at some of the lifting that keeps happening, despite root shaving, planter boxes and building higher. This area, right down to the patisserie, has seen far too many trips and falls. Again, you may not understand why that matters if you're able-bodied, but research shows that too often falls begin a process of declining health and independence that ends an older person's life. This sign says no consultations happened. In truth, the consultation around this stuff has been one of the biggest in the Shire's history. You can check it out on Council's website. Here's another feature that must go, the drop-off. It's around 3 times higher than a standard gutter. In 2015, my daughter had an accident over a standard gutter in her wheelchair. She was cleared of spinal injury after an ambulance trip to Coffs. Her dislocated jaw punched a hole in her ear canal, which eventually stopped bleeding. Her chin split was stitched and her chipped front teeth were repaired. In other words, she was lucky. She wouldn't be with us if that accident had happened here. This area is a no-go zone for our family for this reason. Drop-offs don't belong in high-use areas like this. Let's take a detour upstairs above Cardo's real estate. This building was built around 1922 and historical photos show the camphors had not yet been planted out the front. Amber and Galen live here and they have ongoing problems and costs associated with the drainage being blocked by both roots and leaf fall. Galen was born in Bellingen and climbed the trees as a boy, but they worry about the foundations of their beautiful home. In the downpipe downstairs, you can see a hole has been drilled previously to try and relieve some of the drainage issues. It causes water to flow over the footpath, and plumbers are out of options with roots thick below the path. It's impossible for most of us non-arborists and amateur arborists to know how much longer these trees have naturally, but we do know trees of a similar vintage have dropped limbs in town, and some are actively dying at the showgrounds. Back at Cardo's corner, there's structural damage. A power wheelchair handles easily, but someone who's unsteady on their feet doesn't. A trip hazard around a corner. Crossing Hyde Street, and the first entry is to code for mobility.
Just cross over, darling.
Crossing the street is one of the most stressful situations for our family and many others, even on a zebra crossing.
Stop.
The exit from the road to the other side is not to code, which has several implications. Firstly, a wheelchair user or walker may not be able to make it up the grade, or they may get hung on its peak. Marla's first power chair used to get stuck here, and I would have to jump on the back to free it. Many users have to take a run-up, which is risky through such a narrow ramp, especially when it's busy with pedestrians. And here's what happens down that ramp, again stuck.
Change angle. Try and just turn a little bit to the side.
While we're here, It's important to know Bellingen has a maxi taxi but can't currently load wheelchair users. A new accessible space is in the new plan. Ahead is more poor grades, narrow channels and rough surfaces, unsuitable for many manual chairs or unsteady pedestrians.
Yep. Keep going, I'll come with you.
And on the greengrocer's corner is another poor exit and entry ramp. Too narrow and too steep, with broken road surface at the entrance point there from roots. Yet again, stuck coming down the ramp. Here's the manual wheelchair over this root damage, which has happened in the last few years. Spinning wheels indicate how rough the surface is. And one of my least favourite options in town is the greengrocer's corner to the courthouse corner. It's very difficult with one hand while carrying a box of heavy fruit and veggies in the other, but sometimes it's the best option. Courthouse Corner includes the constantly being repaired telecommunications infrastructure and more extremely uneven footpath for a town centre.
Off Hyde Street is also a very difficult area to access.
The Cenotaph area is also an inaccessible hotspot, despite having one of the only mobility parking spots designed to code in town. It's a high-stress crossing point, not just for those with mobility issues, but most pedestrians. There's no access to the road to cross, so it forces you to travel on the road at turning traffic. On the other side, the only way to and from the path are 3 old driveways, which are often blocked by cars. So we as a community are faced with, for many, a sad farewell to beautiful trees that have served our community well for decades. For many others, it's good riddance to a significant and virulent weed, but their removal is about neither. It's about the heritage buildings on the 3 corners, each just as iconic as our trees, to locals and visitors alike. It's about these streets, paths and trees no longer serving as an inclusive, welcoming town centre. And this matters because people with disability and our elders matter. We're part of this community. We need access to our communal spaces and places. Most cafes, shops, toilets aren't yet accessible. The post office. Almost none of our friends' homes are accessible. We need access to free public spaces too. The Sustainability Centre, the Memorial Hall. The Bellingen Environment Centre. The CWA, the Scout Hall, some church halls, parts of our schools, all inaccessible, all places where real life and real community happens. And how wonderful are our fully accessible venues like the Youth Hub. We need access to parking, bins and water too. So we have an opportunity now with a huge state government grant to do this. It's not about the past, it's about the future. Maybe it's not about you, but maybe it will be about you when you're older. Or maybe you or someone you love will acquire a disability. It can happen to anyone, anytime. For all the infrastructure I've worked on as a parent, ramps, paths, rails, toilets, nothing will come close in my lifetime as far as investment in an equitable, accessible community. Nothing. Here's Marla viewing a 3D video of the planned paths, gardens and crossings. It's smooth, safe and easy. We will still be us as a community after the sadness, the mess and the reconstruction, but we'll be better. Because a community with segregation and isolation, where not everyone is welcome, there's no community at all.